All right, good morning and welcome to the Omaha Public Power District Board Governance Workshop. Notice of the time and place of this workshop was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media. By displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on August 25, 2025. Thank you all for joining us remotely via WebEx events. As a reminder to board members, executive leadership team, and OPPD staff, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You're in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. Joining me today in person are my fellow board members, Amanda Bogner, Mike Kavanaugh, Sarah Howard, John Hudson, Craig Moody, Mary Spurgeon, and Eric Williams. We also have members of our executive leadership team, our general counsel, Steve Bruckner with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and OPPD staff. Additionally, we currently have 5 attendees online in this meeting, and that's consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. Today's workshop will be facilitated by Eric Douglas and Bill Slayton of Leading Resources, Inc. Eric and Bill both have significant experience in helping boards with performance and governance, including OPPD. Our agenda for today is on the screen, and we'll take a minute just to leave that up there. We do intend to go into closed session at approximately 9:30, and are intending of coming out of closed session right around 12:45. 2:30. I'm sorry. We'll come out of closed session around 2:30. That's our projected time. Thanks, Aaron. I want to take a minute to just welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. I always look forward to today. I think it's a very productive day for the district, and likewise, that turns out a productive day for the folks that we work for. So looking forward to it, and I'll pass it over to CEO Fernandez.
Thank you. It's a wonderful time of the year. I really appreciate everybody putting in the time to fill out the surveys, and I think it's important. We're going to talk about what's working, what's not working so well, what needs tweaking. My job would be a lot harder if I didn't have clarity on strategic directions for linkage policies, governance practices. And I think we're going to talk a lot about those. And not only just what's on the paper, but how are we using that to interact with each other among board members with the CEO with the ELT. What we do is incredibly important, and it is incredibly complex. I don't know how else to put it. 8 years ago, when I joined OPPD as CFO, the landscape was complex, it was exciting, and we were doing a lot of work. Today is a whole different. The pressures that we're seeing from everywhere, from customers who want to energize really quickly in incredibly high volume, to a regulatory landscape that keeps changing on us almost on a monthly basis. The financial pressures led by inflationary pressures, tariffs, lack of people. To the operational reality of running a utility the way we're running it, and at the same time doubling, in many cases, the infrastructure we have, especially in our generation fleet, but significantly adding to our transmission. If we all feel tired and stressed, and the survey results, I think they're going to speak for themselves, it's understandable. We're doing a lot in an environment that's getting tighter and tighter and harder to operate. So I think I really welcome this opportunity for us to get together and figure out not how to make the work easier, because the work is not going to get easier. It's going to get harder. But how to make our interactions better, so that we can all support each other and be successful together. If this session today goes anything like the sessions we've had before, I think we're already on a really good path forward to always find ways to work better, to have better communication, and to have candid conversation, frankly, of things that haven't worked. And I think part of it is going to be that closed session piece about it. Okay. It may be hard to talk to the abstract, and we may have to go specifically into specific examples so that we can all come out and have a productive session. So I'm excited about this. And With that, I'll pass it on to Mary.
Thank you. Thank you, Javier. Well, I'll add my good morning to everyone and welcome to the 2025 OPPD Board Governance Workshop. Since the OPPD Board of Directors adopted the current governance structure in 2015 to help with its legal responsibility of oversight of this publicly owned utility, this annual workshop has been an important part of ongoing training for the board. Just to reiterate some of what our CEO said, it is my view that we are living in and through an unusually fraught and unstable time for our nation and for our world. Never have the individuals and communities in the OPPD utility footprint been more reliant on electric power. And not since the 1950s has there been such a huge demand for more electric service as quickly as possible. What we do, the decisions we make, affect and matter to nearly 1 million people. The weight of this significant responsibility is felt by board members and most certainly felt by the officers of the district. For the benefit of members of the public and employees who may be listening, prior to each board workshop, directors have completed surveys asking our view on the effectiveness of each of the 45 plus specific governance policies that we have and where or how they might be improved or how we might better use them. In this way, we directors have been mirrors for one another, helping us to better understand one another's perspective. Because smooth operation of OPPD requires, nay, demands, clear communication and understanding between board members and the CEO and executive leadership team, ELT for short. Last year, the decision was made to invite members of the executive leadership team also to complete the same governance survey that board members complete. This has resulted in the board of directors having more mirrors, as it were, to reflect back and inform us about how we are doing in our roles and in utilizing the guiding governance documents. As is often the case in one's personal use of bigger, better physical mirrors, this has resulted in having previously unobserved characteristics, viewpoints, and differences in perception that were unknown to us come to light. The workshop today will focus on the places where there is the largest disagreement and concern or perceptions about those issues. And the goal is to increase understanding and alignment between the board and the ELT. The problem-solving discussions that occur will deal with the what and how of the board's governance processes, procedures, and protocols. We also will discuss how the board may more effectively and efficiently receive and request information from the CEO and the executive leadership team. Board colleagues and OPPD officers, speaking for me only, I found the results of the survey to reveal uncomfortable truths. Our consultants, Eric Douglas and Bill Slayton of Leading Resources Incorporated, will lay down the ground rules for this meeting. But before we hear from them in that regard, I want to say that I am adopting this inner reference frame. It is that everyone, without exception, is doing the best they can, and over this past year have done the best they could at the time. We are here today to sharpen our governance skills and to learn when and how to better apply those skills. Finally, I will offer this intention for this day. May the spoonfuls of grace that need to accompany things that are hard to chew and digest be abundant for all of us. Back to you for the safety briefing, Mr. Fernandez.
I'm so used to Josh.
Josh is in the back.
Josh.
Okay,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
that's okay. Yeah, I'll just stand back here. Welcome everyone back. It seems like we just saw everyone just the other day, but quick safety briefing. If anybody's not feeling ill or not feeling well, even if you're not here, you're staying home, getting hydration, making sure you're getting that rest that you need. If anybody needs any type of fire suppression, first aid materials or anything like that, we have those accessible outside the building. And we also have more upstairs with our office. So feel free to get a hold of anybody here from OPPD. We'll get you help as quickly as possible. Also be aware of any emergency exits. This is our primary exit. You can exit this door, but that hallway will take you right back out here to the front. So in that event, we would just ask that everybody normally leave the hall leave the room and then congregate outside to the north here in this parking lot so we can make sure everybody's safe. I don't think we have any impending weather. All looks kind of gloomy, but please be aware of the weather and make sure that you're adjusting how you're getting into the office and out and about, and make sure you have materials accessible to you in the vehicle in case of severe weather. If there is any type of event itself, we have security out here and we'll direct people to where they need to go to be safe. Also, we want everybody to be aware of your psychological safety. We always make sure that these types of meetings are respectful. We want to hear healthy conflict or constructive criticism. We want to hear from multiple perspectives. These are trusting environments and one where we want to promote a culture of curiosity. And then finally, we all have digital items in front of us as we see, and we all work in very important digital environments. So please be aware of any suspicious emails. Don't click on any links that you're not familiar with. And definitely if you're from OPPD, we encourage you to hit that fish alert button that we have access in our Outlook so that our cybersecurity team can take care of those things. So with that, hope you have a great meeting today. I know you have a lot of interesting things to talk over. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I'll make just a couple of additions to that. If you came to the building, you parked in the north parking lot, of course, you probably saw machinery and a lot of work. Just be aware of that. Later on during the day, they may be pouring concrete, etc. So just as if we have to gather outside, it's not the usual parking lot. There's machines in there. And then the other one we usually talk about run, hide, or fight. Of course, we're all aware of the very tragic situation that happened yesterday in Minneapolis. And I think it's just a sobering reminder that these things are real. And so having a plan on here, we have lots of windows. What would we do if we were ever in a situation like that? Just a good reminder of surveying your surrounding. Take your time during lunch breaks to figure out if you had to run, if you had to fight, if you had to hide, where would you do all of those things? It's unfortunate that we have to talk about this so often, but it's the world we're living in, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us to keep that safety top of mind.
Great. Thank you, Josh and Javier. Thanks for the safety briefing. Mary and Javier, thank you very much for the opening words. I appreciate it. I'm going to pass it over to Bill and Eric so we can talk about the overview of the workshop goals.
Well, that's up to me. And so, hi, everybody. It's great to see you all. I'm Eric Douglas, for those of you who don't know me. I think this is kind of my 10th year of being here, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 10 years ago. I think Mary referenced this. It was 2015 when we adopted this governance structure. And I think I was here then trying to help you all get that right. And so I feel, Bill and I both feel honored that heck, you keep inviting us back. So thank you very, very much for that. Mary, thank you for those inspiring words of today. Grace with which we want to proceed today. I'm just going to give a quick little overview of our kind of intention for today, and then we're going to get right into it. I think Bill and I had the good fortune to be able to talk to everybody around this table in advance of this meeting and really understand, in addition to the survey results, kind of what are the kind of salient issues that we need to be talking about today. So we're looking very much forward to having a very constructive discussion about what we heard, give you time to sit back and reflect, and think about those things, and come up with commitments to work together in perhaps new ways that will help assure a really strong, effective relationship between this board, the CEO, and this executive leadership team. So we're excited about today. I think we feel like we have a great game plan, if you will, for the day. And with regard to ground rules, all I would say is that in addition to some grace that we extend to one another and to the things that we just heard with regard to a culture of curiosity and questioning, we have, one of the things I love about OPPD, and I've used you as a model for this, is the placard ground rules. Those things I think are always important to keep in mind. I don't know that we have to read through them today, but I think just keeping in mind this idea of asking questions, that the ratio of asking questions, help me understand kind of questions to the level of assertion is always a good gauge of the quality of communication. I would ask that everybody be fully present. Again, be careful about being distracted by the things in your electronic devices and really just listening and being here present doing this work today is so important. And I think, Mary, you said it, and I think everybody here agrees that we we're here to take a positive, constructive approach to whatever we hear in terms of the findings and these results of these surveys. We're here to be builders, to be constructive in the way in which we take on this work. So with that, I think the agenda, we're going to have a period of time here in which we're going to talk about previous action steps and accomplishments. We're going to do that next. We're going to do a little celebration of the things that have gone well and the things we're proud of and we want to celebrate for OPPD. We will then share the results of the survey. We'll go into closed session, share the results of the surveys and the findings from the interviews, and work in small groups as well as a large group to, I hope, kind of reflect and also invent how we want to be working as we go. That, Bill, do you want to add anything?
I just, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be with you today. I decided last night, I just said, to get ready for this, why don't I ask AI a question? And so I asked, is OPPD a good utility? I just toss that out and see what it would say. And actually what it said is yes. It did say, and one thing it did mention is J.D. Powers named OPPD #1 in residential customer satisfaction in 2024 among mid-size, mid-country utilities. So I just, as a former board member of a public utility, when I see something like that, it says, okay, we may have things we're going to work on, but the fact is you're in a good position. It's a great way to start.
Now we're going to Scott.
We have a couple of slides follow up front. Just so you don't have to look at two focus areas at once. I was asked by a member of the public, what this meeting was about, and they said it's really wonderful that once a year the board and the executive team, in terms of its commitment to effective governance practices, stops to really not focus on the business of OPPD, but really how collectively do we want to get the business done. And how impressed I was by the overall commitment for the number of boards that we all serve on, that we should take the time to pause and do it, especially in an environment like we have going on. There are big things that are happening all around us. All around us. I've never been in an industry going through this much change at this moment in time. And so as we're going through new changes and new challenges, that means as board, there's new changes and new challenges. As executive team, there's new changes and challenges. And so to be able to take a pause and commit to thinking about how to navigate through those collectively and collaboratively is really a testament to the strength of this team. And I think our collective's focus on ensuring our customers get what they need from us. And I find that to be very inspiring. And if I may share, we were also reflecting then in the back of the room how there are boards that maybe we've been on that would benefit from such a thing as well. And so I just wanted to acknowledge and give a little bit of kudos up front. Well, I want to talk a little bit of accomplishments. There's a number of things in this slide. These slides are just added into diligence, so you should have them, but a lot of these things that you've seen as well. It's been a busy year, and these do not reflect the decisions and the billions of dollars and all the stuff that's happening month to month. This reflects a commitment to governance and to strengthening governance along the way. I don't need to read all of those, but I hope that as you're reviewing them and thinking about them, you get a sense of all the things that have been accomplished by the board's commitment to governance and hopefully through the staff that's helping to bring these accomplishments forward. I don't know if there's any pause or desire to reflect on any of these from anyone, anything stand out as particularly noteworthy. I am very grateful for our last month's approval of SD6 in terms of the continued commitment to safety. And just as a reminder, that surfaced through the board policy survey as something that we may want to consider and therefore was added to the board work plan and made its way through accomplishments. The next thing I wanted to highlight is a little bit of the things that really I would say that are on track. We continue to review and refine the board work plan process. And as items come in, I'm always looking at it going, is this the most efficient way for this to get on the work plan? Might we be doing something better? And I always feel that there's an openness for suggestions in terms of how we might do that differently. We began to implement the practice of adding guiding questions, really more kind of objective statements, but Director Wagner and I have been working on that in our last risk committee. I think we did a good job of that. We're hoping to be able to kind of make that a practice that we can then provide additional guidance to other committees moving forward, so that both in terms of agenda item titling and the overall objective is just even clearer going into the meeting, both to those that are participating in the meeting as well as the public, so that they can see those and understand what exactly is happening. There is a policy that's being reviewed right now, GP 14 for board expense reimbursement, and that also is coming through the risk committee. It'll just be updated, and that will be able to be chucked off the list as well. There are a few items on hold. One was the SD11 economic development, and really just understanding what the best vision for economic development might be. That also appeared again through the survey as maybe something that needs to be considered or worked on. SG2 is on hold, rates policy refinement. That was put on hold pending some other rates types of discussions. It also did show up on the survey again. And then there was a need to develop a plan for strategic education and training. And that also did show up in the survey again. So these on hold items, I think, were revalidated as ones the board really wants to focus on, and will continue to do that moving forward. There were a few items that had not been started. One was the GPBL monitoring process. I know in conversations with Bill and Eric, that is something they hold very near and dear, and we will hear more about that at the end of the day. We've not had an opportunity where we've really had to review and refine a policy that requires a lot of heavy discussion this year. And so we've not had an opportunity to do what we intended to do last year, which is kind of review and refine that. It is on the list. So when a policy comes out that's going to require a large amount of input and diversity of opinion, and how do we best navigate through that, we're prepared, but we've just not had to execute that yet. There is a conversation around the corporate secretary in that policy that still needs to be refined, and that did come up again in the survey. And then finally, BL10 delegation to the president and chief executive officer, real property and personal property. The board indicating it's interesting that they have to approve the sale of OPPD property, but not necessarily the purchase. And I think we will see in some of the survey findings, you will see that there's some questions around some of that type of delegation more generally, and I'd say broader than this BL. So a lot has been accomplished, a lot of work, and there's a commitment of work to be accomplished still, and we will refine this list as we go today, and I look forward to it, looking forward to the conversation. Any reflections on accomplishments or this inventory of our to do? I hold one, which is we have a board work plan, which is something that came from one of the workshops in the past. And so I think it does provide some level of assurance and commitment that when we are committing to do something, we understand that we committed to do it and we're keeping ourselves accountable to execute. Yes, Director Spurgeon.
Well, I'll just mention, I was asked this question like 3 months ago. So none of these accomplishments came out to me, but I have been thinking, we do quite a good job, I think, of making sure that the ordinary business of the utility goes forward pretty smoothly. The fact that we have a consent agenda, and oftentimes things that are moved from the consent agenda for discussion are not because we have a lot of questions about it, but because we want to be transparent with the public. So, that would be, I think that's worth talking about. And I mentioned specifically when resolutions started to come with engineer certificates. I don't know, I was a little bit like, what's this about? Is this legal? And we got the assurance that it was. And anymore, I think, I certainly understand why they're necessary and why we use them. And I think that's become part of our understanding of how the utility needs to be run. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reflections?
Okay. Well, actually, I'm gonna actually ask you all to reflect out loud. So I would love to have each of you, just to get the voices going in the room, just reflect for a moment on something that you feel was a particularly noteworthy accomplishment of the last year for the utility. Just jot down in your head or jot down on a piece of paper what you want to say, but I'm gonna actually literally go around the room and ask each of you to say something. And so I'm gonna give people 30 seconds to make that reflection happen, and then I will ask. And Mike, I'll probably start with you, so just to put you on the spot.
Mike only needs 15 seconds.
Okay, roll. Director Kavanaugh, go ahead. What's an accomplishment?
The storm restorations. We've had multiple, unfortunately, we've had multiple ones last couple of years, and never more proud, and certainly always amazed at the great job the teamwork, the entire organization unites and gets the job done. And I think that we appreciate it as board members, and I think the public does. Yeah, so that's certainly top of my mind.
Yeah, great. Gina?
I was actually gonna say the same thing, so I'll go to a different one. We had just talked about that before because the level of the storms that we've had, the severity of them have been very, very difficult in the last couple of years. But so I'll give a different one. We talked about SD6, which is the safety metric. That's something that literally our team has been working on for years. And it is what we believe will lead the nation in looking at things differently, not just from a physical standpoint, but a psychological standpoint, and encouraging to catch things and leading instead of lagging type. So that's something that literally was percolating for probably 5 years. And because of our cooperation and our conversations, we made that happen. So that's a good one for us.
I'm gonna go for Brad, then I'm gonna go.
Yeah, go for you. James, do it too for.
I think Brad would say retaining our bond rating was a huge accomplishment this last year. For me, I'm really pleased with the way in which this organization, especially at this level, is able to navigate changes in personnel and roles and those kinds of things. We lost our CFO, Lisa Olson left the organization, we welcomed a new board member, like all of those things happened, and we were able to just kind of keep things clicking along, which I think is really.
I think it's in the way we've leveraged and used some creativity. I think looking at interim goals under SD7 under the IRP process is a pretty creative way to ensure that gets the attention and the thoughtfulness it deserves. And I think that kind of creativity and willingness to work around challenging situations is one really strong point, I think, of last year.
All right, I'll say the easiest one to say, but the hardest one to accomplish is getting Turtle Creek online.
It's hard when you're going this, because it's like, oh, that's mine. So I'm feeling like challenged for this side of it. But there's a
I
lot.
didn't mind going first.
It's a good way to go.
It's okay to say ditto, right?
Ditto. And I think the launching of the risk committee that came out of that, just really, it's the start of a new committee and the potential that holds, I think, to really help navigate through challenging issues is encouraging.
I can think of so many things, but I know you.
Leave some
Talk
for
about
that.
those. To me, one thing that we didn't talk about very much, and Bill, you just touched on that, the customer satisfaction, both from JD Power and Escalent, getting #1 in the region, #2 in the nation. So that is just amazing. And it doesn't happen by accident. It's been a lot of work getting us through.
Mine might be a little bit of a ditto, so I apologize, but I think it is so important to say at least twice in case it is, the solutions that everybody's worked through, just generically, anything that has come up in the last calendar year, and beyond that even, I've been ever impressed by the ability to people taking in stride to react quickly to any problem that's arose, and it gives me the utmost confidence that everything's being handled well. And I really appreciate that.
Jeff? You said. So. I'll let them-
Would you add anything? Okay, we'll pass the
I'll
baton to
pass it on.
Mr. Bruckner.
At the risk of perhaps stealing some thunder from Troy, I would say the successful ordering of new combustion turbines from our supplier, as well as successfully negotiating an EPC contract with our contractor for the new round of generation to follow Turtle Creek and Standing Bear Lake.
We made a policy update to SD9 that outlined aggressive goals for new resources coming online in 2023. And then in 2024, we had 3 major announcements of new resources that we can collaborate, 2 of which were in collaboration with one of our large customers. And so I think the forward-looking resource planning coupled with a policy update leading directly to ahead of schedule announcements of significant accomplishments. It was throughout 2024, so I guess that's within the last year. I think that was really impressive.
Definitely gets harder the farther you go around. Trying to find something new, check. I reflect, it's kind of interesting. We are resetting the technological capabilities of this organization. Basically, every type of software and system that we have that supports customers or outages or the way we take care of the system is all being rebooted. And at the same time, we're trying to keep our old systems and, moving and being as productive as we can in that space. Not to mention, we're putting in more infrastructure in a short period of time than we have in the history of OPPD. And we're replacing aging infrastructure at the same time. And somehow we're hitting our bond rating and we're able to try to manage through that, not without difficulties. But that's been something I've been proud of is the ability to juggle that.
And all of the teamwork that has to be supported.
All right, well, obviously I'm new to the board, joining the board in January. Over this year, I've been very impressed with the professionalism, not only the board members, fellow board members, but really the whole ETL. I think they know their roles well, they execute their roles well, and we saw that in spades with the response to the storms, particularly the big ice event with 1,200 some poles that got taken out, and the professionalism throughout that, from the executive leadership down through the crews out in the field, no significant safety issues during a very challenging week and a half of recovery, and there was, I thought, really impressive.
I'd reflect on the culmination of many of the things for customers. So restoration for customers, and quickly the establishment and enhancement of systems for customers, bringing on additional resources that enable us to go to customers, some larger growth customers that had previously been waiting to start engaging with them in conversation on how we can energize their projects. That's all been a positive. And lastly, I'd add for this body, I think there have been some maybe connections of information over the past few months, that information that's maybe been there, but it's connected in a different way to highlight some additional realities of the business we face.
Just from a legislative perspective, nothing bad happened. And I feel like there were a lot of opportunities for that and nothing bad happened. And that was, I think, a success.
That's a victory. Okay, it all comes down to this.
I could say ditto. Ditto all of it. I was really more in Troy's realm of, there's so many big things that we're doing. AMI. It's out there, it's coming this weekend, or the next weekend, there's a major change that we're making to launch some of the systems that Troy's talking about, Turtle Creek, many things. And then I go to all the people that keep the lights running every single day. That when I get up in the morning, we all get up, the lights are there, it's all functioning. And I'm amazed at those folks that do that every single day and how they do it. Especially with what's moving around us, whether it's a storm, political, people are doing every day doing things. And I find it just amazing. Over.
Over, yeah. Well, what else are people reflecting on that perhaps nobody mentioned or now you're thinking about because have a chance to additionally reflect? Any other successes or accomplishments you want? Yeah, Gina.
So we kind of said this, but we had to make some really tough decisions this year that we had to come together and do that as a team. Because of all this stuff that was coming at us, and they were hard, but I really did feel like we did come together and have conversations and support each other as we were going through some of the decision making that was going on. And I can say that I've made some of the hardest decisions that I have ever made in my entire 35 years career because of a lot of the things that were coming at us. And we found ways to support each other in that, even, walking in and out of offices and asking questions and stuff, or getting an IM that says, how can I help with this, and we're reaching across with each other. So that to me was extraordinary. And I can't tell you how much that I appreciated the times like at the mutual aid sites or the service centers when the board came out to see with their own eyes what was happening and asking questions. So I just like to say that was something that, I had not seen before and how much I appreciate.
And help fill coolers with ice too.
For sure, for sure, for sure. And ask questions. So that was beautiful.
Corey alluded to a lot of the infrastructure projects, and I would just click down on that a level and say more specifically with some of our transmission projects and planning efforts and making advances not only internally, but board engagement in terms of those community meetings and just the support. I think that's felt, because those are not easy projects and they are disruptive by nature. And to know that the support is there as we navigate through those is incredibly helpful.
How could I forget? I went to a commissioning meeting for Fort Calhoun Nuclear Station yesterday. It has always just been so impressive to hear OPPD's people who are project managers, the station leaders, the assistant directors responsible for safety. I don't know, there were 8 people in the room, I think at least, who are responsible for some aspect of the station as it continues to be torn down and done away with. And the outside evaluators that have been hired are so complimentary. And they say to other clients, oh, use OPPD as your benchmark for your achievements of this. It's just stunning. I watched the reactor, which is, we had a little video of them thing about a week ago, and it's shorter by 20 feet. It's anyway, just really impressed.
We've had several things that were very long-term planning. I'm glad Kate said AMI, that was near the top of my list. I know that that's not accomplished yet, but it is long years in planning and we've gotten to some real critical outcomes there. I went off the flag. We've had long discussions about rate structure updates to be more modernized to where we will be in the future. And within the last year, the residential and small commercial rate structure update was another thing that had been long in coming and finally accomplished. So I think that was good planning and good execution by everybody to get where we are on that one. Just wanted to flag that because, again, that was multiple years of work.
I don't know how to put this one in a nice packet that I can share, but it's a perception one where, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, and this is something that came from Governor Pillen actually, and saying, when he took office just 2 years ago, he rarely talked about energy. And now virtually every time that I hear him speak in public, energy and power are top of mind. And he's not alone. And you have chambers of commerce, you have county commissioners, you have city officials, and our business, our service, which has always been important, now it's in the top of minds of a lot of people. And I say this with a lot of pride because this is happening with OPPD in a good space with. when I hear conversations, when I have conversations in private or in public settings, when people talk about energy and they bring OPPD to the conversation, it's most of the time in a good light. And OPPD is there doing stuff. OPPD is there meeting the challenge. And that to me, it brings me a lot of pride because it is a labor of love. You have to spend a lot of time with people explaining what we're doing, building trust. And the result of seeing and hearing that type of support is incredible to me. That doesn't mean that we don't have challenges ahead, and sometimes we get good criticism and feedback, but most of the time it's, hey, things are tough ahead. We have a lot of demand for energy. We have big storms, and OPPD is there to help. And I don't know how else to put it, but it's something that brings me a lot of pride.
Anybody else? I was reflecting, and Bill, maybe you can help me here. I was reflecting on like so we conducted interviews with everybody, and we asked, this is the question, one of the questions we asked was like, what accomplishments do you want to single out in terms of framing this retreat? One that I think we ought to just reckon with is that everybody said this governance structure is working well for us. That having this system of policies and having this clarity of like, what is the role of the board? What is the role and the delegations to the CEO? What are the strategic direction policies that give us clarity on where we're going as a utility? That whole system is serving us well, that structure works well. So I just want to call out that. In the last couple of years, another thing that was mentioned significantly was that we have been on a continual course to try to evolve the manner of communication at this level. And I remember 2 years ago, Javier, you talking about the importance of bringing the board into the decision-making circle earlier on to make sure that there could be a reduction in any points of friction later on down the path, which was a change in how you did business. And people cited that that is working, that is a positive for this group. So just want to say that. Another success, again, I think that we heard in the interviews was that relationships amongst this group are collegial, that they are respectful and cordial for the most part. And then the last one, which seems like a minor thing, but the fact that the all committee slide deck gets out Friday before the Tuesday meeting, people said that's a victory. We're making that happen. So yeah, just want to flag a couple of extra things I didn't hear around the room just now. So any final thoughts on accomplishments, things to be celebrated? Okay, so I note the hour to be 9:15. The next thing on our agenda would be to move into the discussion of the survey results and a little bit more about what we've learned through our interview process. Therefore, I believe this might be the time in which the agenda calls for us to perhaps move into closed session, but I would defer to you.
It does, thank you. So we'll conduct a closed session this morning to discuss two topics. We'll share findings from surveys and LRI interviews and refining our communication. We'll conclude today's closed session at 2:30 p.m. and we'll open the WebEx meeting to allow the public and OPPD staff to join. Director Spurgeon, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Yes, I move that the board go into closed session at this time, 9:17 a.m. to discuss two topics. One, share findings from surveys and LRI interviews, and two, refining our communication. With respect to the share findings from surveys and LRI interviews and refining our communication, a closed session is necessary for the protection of the public interest because the discussion involves matters of board governance and communications that are confidential and may involve legal guidance protected by the attorney-client privilege or discussion of critical utility infrastructure information that could pose a risk to district operations if made public.
All right, thank you. This motion requires a second.
Seconds.
Ms. Lane?
Mr. Wagner? Yes. Mr. Cardinal?
Yes.
Yes.
Victor Howard, yes. Richard Hudson.
Yes.
Victor Moody.
Yes.
Victor Spurgeon.
Yes.
Yes. All right. The motion to go into closed session is passed. This closed session will be limited to 2 topics: share findings from surveys and LRI interviews, and refining our communication. No votes or other board action will be taken. Welcome back. We have a motion and a second required to reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Ms. Lane?
Yes. Victor Kavanaugh,
Yes. Yes.
Director Hudson. Director Howard. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Spurgeon.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. The motion to come out of closed session at 2:38 PM is carried. This closed session was limited to discussion regarding 2 topics: to share the findings from surveys and LRI interviews, and refining our communication. During the closed session, we had a great discussion about how the district can improve communication. That includes board members amongst themselves, with ELT, and of course with the public. During that closed session, no votes or other board actions were taken. So with that, I will send it you, Eric.
Yep, to me, just to kind of orient you where we are, we're at the point in our agenda where we're talking about other governance topics. I think the first thing that's going to happen here is Scott will share with us the results of the board policy survey. We'll get those results. Next on the agenda after that would be a discussion of the board work plan. And then we do want to talk about the GP and BL monitoring process and any other governance related topics prior to public comment in around 3:30.
Yeah, thank you all very much again for filling out a survey with regards to the board policies. Again, the system was implemented in 2015 to help guide board behavior that you as a board wanted to instill in yourselves, really to ensure that there is clarity of strategic direction being provided to the organization, and ultimately what are the delegation of authority that's being offered to the organization to carry out the work and service to those directed. What we'll do here is just do a very high level perspective of each of those different bodies of policy, and then try to land a little bit on what I kind of hold as key actions then for the board work plan consideration. And at the end of this briefing, hopefully there'll be alignment and you'll see around the next steps. So governance practice policies, out of these 15 policies, 11 of the 15 policies, the board had identified there to be sufficiently in compliance with, and that it matched the intent. So the policy states what the board would want for it to state, and the board acknowledged that they believe themselves to be sufficiently in compliance with the policy as stated. I would offer that while the board generally rated all these policies high, there was an opportunity to maybe understand a little bit more about some policies. One was GP5, the election of board officers, and there was just a call to ensure that this policy is being exercised in a way that is very open and very transparent. And I think from an action perspective, there's just an opportunity to make sure that as the slate of board officers is identified, that's the process itself is understood. How did that identification happen? And that everyone has an opportunity to weigh in and to influence that. I think that can easily be addressed through some process considerations. The second component here was GP8, board committee principles. And that was just making a minor change to the notion that all committees, in fact, today's meeting, there is an opportunity for public comment, and there is an opportunity to review that policy to reflect that. And then finally, GP14, which is board expense reimbursement. That policy the revision is in process. It's currently in the risk committee. And there's an opportunity, I think, to bring forward that for more review with the board in September. Additionally, on GP 10, which is about board training and orientation, there is a desire to make, well, the board made the determination that the policy as stated really represents what they want the policy to state, but that the training that's prescribed in that policy is not necessarily happening, and that there's an opportunity to develop training plans. This policy has been on the work plan for a number of years. So I think it would be, I would suggest as the action, taking it back into governance and saying, what do we intend? What would make this policy successful? What would be the successful execution of this policy? Sorry, I'm just getting in one of those battery saver things on my computer. To the risk. Thank you. That was very, very fast. With regards to the remaining policies, I would just offer that there's an opportunity for continued discussion, but we've had some of that discussion. And so I'm not going to belabor the bottom points here, GP2, GP3, and GP7. If we go to the next slide, strategic direction. At 8 of the 15 policies, the board had really identified as sufficiently reflect board intent in terms of everybody agreeing that they reflected the intent of the board. There were some questions that were being raised. You know, is there an opportunity to understand board member concerns or to make some refinements to SD1, SD2, and SD8? The ones that really came up for, I would say, stronger suggestion to revision are SD6, and guess what? That's happened. So that's happened since the survey. There's always and almost always conversations around SD7, SD9, and SD11. For recommended action would be to take SD7 and SD9 back into systems committee, have conversations around those and surface if there's any intent or any need for change. And SD11 to take into the customer and public engagement committee for additional conversation. And then we'll go to board staff linkage. In terms of there's 16 policies, 15 plus point A, but there's 1 and 1A. 7 of the 16 policies sufficiently reflect board intent and compliance. There were a few policies here that are listed here, and I do think warrant additional conversation. I would bring that back to governance committee, in that there may have been some level of disagreement in terms of whether or not these policies are really representing the content that the board would want to have moving forward, or is there a compliance issue? And I think both of whether it's an intent or a compliance issue with each one of those. And then on the next page, there is an opportunity potentially to review and revise BLA just to better understand the intent of BLA, and does it continue to align with what the board is wanting and what staff is needing. And then there were some opportunities to better understand variances of opinion, BLT and the board regards to BL5 and BL14. And again, conversations happened earlier in the day that I would say kind of connect and support getting to a better space with regards to those two. So I would offer as next steps that based upon the feedback, I will be providing a slate of what I see are the policy refinements that could be happening, and as well as some alignment discussions that could happen by November 18th. I'll bring those forward, incorporating any actions into the board work plan after the board has had an opportunity to review those by December 16th. And then as we go through the regular work plan of the board, to have an opportunity to continually monitor and to assess the progress and momentum towards executing against those.
Any thoughts or reflections?
Board members, as you looked at these survey results around the policies, did you have any reflections you wanted to add to what Scott said? I mean, I will just add that, and this dovetails a little bit with the conversation about the monitoring of the GP and BL policies. So forgive me if I've sounded this note before, but I'll sound it one, which is that all three of these buckets of policies are really important. And the attention we place on the GP and BL policies, I feel should be as equally important as the attention we place on the strategic directive policies. In terms of the regularity with which you review them as a board, not just as 4 members, but as 8 members. And that you ask yourselves, are we still A, in compliance, and B, is this policy still saying what we want to say? Interestingly, too, I think Bill and me, is that a couple of the kind of linchpin governing policies that are in the list of things that where there was some strong disagreement are your GP2, GP3 policies, which really lay out the purpose and the job of the boards. I would say that in order to continue to be mindful of the role of the board, hearing all customer perspectives, bringing those customer perspectives back to the board discussions, being outwardly focused on sort of the larger strategic questions that face the district, not on administrative detail or operations. Those are all things that are called out in GP2 and GP3. And I think just having that regular chance to monitor and ask yourselves how well are we doing on these policies will help, again, continue to make sure this is really a high performing. BL7 is also a really critical BL. BL7 is the delegation to the CEO. It's also on the list here. BL7 is the one that says, and I think the 3rd or 4th clause, that it is the important function of the, actually be the language to you. BL7, the delegation to the president and chief executive officer, states in its 5th bullet point, the CEO shall use prudent judgment in the exercise of the delegations in a manner that is operationally and economically sound, serves the best interests of OPPD's customer owners in the community, employs prudent business practices, balances the risks and benefits of the actions, and does not expose OPPD to unreasonable risk. If the CEO reasonably determines that an activity related to the delegations presents, regardless of the size of the financial commitment, 1, a unique and significant operational risk to OPPD, 2, a significant impact to customers, 3, a significant impact to community relations, 4, a significant impact to OPPD's reputation, or 5, materially compromises the policies and goals established by the board. The CEO shall inform and consult with the board in a timely manner and may request that the board take appropriate action. So I'm calling that one out specifically because I think when we talk about forms of communication and places for communication to occur, that timely communication and identification of those risks and operational issues that the president and CEO sees are important to flag for the board. 2 things need to happen. A, there needs to be a place for him to bring that information timely, when all board members are hearing it. And B, this is regardless of whether it's Javier or somebody else in the CEO role, needs to feel that those insights that he has into risks of the organization will be received in the spirit with which they're communicating, which is received as welcome news. Thank you for the timely updates. Now let's figure out as a board and as a BLT, how do we want to respond to that? How do we want to deal with that? And so I think having had the conversation earlier today about forums, I think my hope would be that one of the measures of success of those forums would be that you would see a continued adherence to this exercise of the CEO's responsibility to bring you this information about strategic risks, operational challenges to them. So that is why I think when I think about the GP and DL monitoring process, I would love to see a more robust sort of process in place here. I don't know if there's thoughts about that. If that's something the governance committee is talking about, or That's what we're talking at least a little bit about.
We will talk about that.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. So that's an action to be taken back to the government.
I will tell you, I'll confess, I don't review those every year, but I have this past year, because of this conversation we had on the governance workshop last year, I found that so valuable, just incredibly valuable. Some were just a reminder of what I already understood. And going through all the GPs and BLs in detail, it really highlighted many issues that we're living today in the utility that someone very smart a long time ago put in that BL and like, oh, this is coming very handy. Right. And so it's, yeah, I really appreciate that. And I would support the notion of going through these on an annual basis or some more frequent.
I think that really tees up the question nicely. One of the things that came out of last year's workshop was the notion that we would get input from the executive leadership team as well. And so it sounds like there was real value in terms of kind of compelling, if you will, the review of each of these and having an opportunity to provide feedback. I think the distinction and approach often between what you and Bill champion for, and I know has worked well in the environments you come from, is breaking that down so it's not like an annual review. Here's 30 things, look at them all at once and absorb. It's more like grouping them. And so in a way, the review becomes more of a monthly type of an activity based upon the groupings of policies.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we typically see the board work plan having a monitoring calendar for all three types of policies in it with monthly cadences for the review, cadences as you suggest. Are there other work plan related issues to talk about or points to raise for people? How well is that board work plan working for the board? Do you feel it's an effective tool for you? Are there tweaks to make to it?
If I may, I think it's working well. I think one muscle that we haven't exercised that much and is whether we just move things out of the working plan, even if they're not complete. We've had a few examples where at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, something made sense. We put it on the work plan, said it's not quite ready, but let's keep it in there. And then time goes by and maybe it's not relevant anymore. Or maybe we take it off the work plan. We wait until the time is right to bring it into the work plan. I say that because from a hygiene perspective, it's when I have a list of things that we're working on, I want to see that we're working on those. But we've had a couple of items in there that we haven't moved, and we have agreed that they're not ready to. And so I would challenge the group here. We need to be just as adept as we are at bringing things in there, to take them out when they're no longer applicable or the time is not right for us to yet move on.
Is there a point where all 8 board members are collectively looking at the board work plan regularly and just asking that question? Is that at all committees where that happens?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could do a finer point of asking, we review the work plan and go over it, and Scott offers info about it, but I don't know if we go, hey, should we pull this off of it?
I could compel that. I mean, I could move that question forward. Yeah, thanks.
I think the one thing that I would benefit from is maybe a little bit more context on why it's on the work plan. Because there's a box and but it's very high level.
Right.
And sometimes, to your point, they're 2 years old, and it's just I don't have any recollection.
I'll give you an
example.
example.
Was that brought it there?
I'll give you an example. SD2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the notion on that one was, hey, we need to modernize our rates offerings. And this is back, I don't know, 4 years ago, we talked about what are all the things that we're going to be able to do with rates once we have AMI or other different technology in place. That's awesome. It's still a conversation we have, but we've had that box in there in a parking lot because we're not quite ready to make the changes that were originally planned in there. So if we were to take that off, it doesn't mean that we don't pay attention to SD2 or to rates. We're not ready. We know we want that, but I think that there has to be, in my opinion, convergence between a desire to change a policy and how applicable, how quickly can we do that? If we leave it there, it subtracts from the sense of urgency from the others.
Yeah.
That's my observation.
Yeah, and I mean, each committee has ownership of those, right? So like that to me is probably even an even better place for the committee to go, okay, why is this here? Does it still need to be there? And then when we get to all committee, that's maybe the place where the committee is able to say, we discussed, we're gonna recommend to the full board that this gets vacated from the work plan, and then that's the opportunity for all 8 of us to sort of nod along and say, yeah.
And it's a standing item on the pre-committee agenda, but you admittedly, usually the time it gets to it, we're really up against the clock and there's really not
It's the
much
last
time.
thing we do in all of our meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's probably a way I could push the question just to quickly kind of help with the hygiene of it. It's good feedback.
Okay, so we ticked through the policy survey. And just to call the question, is there any feedback people want to offer on the policy survey? Hearing none, we talked about GP and BL. That's going to governance. We talked about the work plan, a few maybe more attention paid to the work plan, employee items off the work. Are there any other governance related topics, things that are you wish we could deal with, whether it's today or in a future meeting? Again, whether it's related to policies themselves, manner with which the policies are monitored, the manner with which the policies are revised, anything that folks feel needs to be improved or tweaked or defined. Seeing anybody leap to that bait? So, okay, great. And I think on our agenda, this would be the time for, if we're gonna go next after public comment to articulation of next steps and then have final reflections of the day. So unless there's something people want to, again, insert at this point in the agenda, it would be time for public.
Yes, thank you. So we will take comments from the public on items of district business. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of the official public record. We'll take comments in the room first, and then WebEx. I don't see anybody in the room, Josh, no. You see anybody online? I'll read through the script there. For WebEx attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please send the meeting host a message using the chat feature or utilize the hand raise feature. Detailed instructions can be found on the OPPD website at the link shown on the screen. When I call on a member of the public to speak, please affirm that we can hear you before commencing with your comments. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we'll use the timer on the screen and signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. If you have written material, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com and they'll be received on our behalf. Anybody yet? Okay, I'll cut the script there then. So we'll get back into the final part of the meeting with Eric.
I wanted to just make sure we have kind of coherence around what are our action steps coming out of this retreat.
Eric, I apologize. I know this is a new room. The camera is likely right there. Is that it?
Oh, you can still see.
We can still see. Okay, you're good.
It's coming from that.
You're good.
I want to make sure that
I just want to make sure that you weren't standing in the way of the camera. She's looking at you.
It's that camera right there.
So we're good. We're standing.
You're good. So,
They won't be able to read your writing anyway.
Thank you, Mike. Action steps. So let's go first to kind of the sort of the broad discussion that we had with regards to freedom of communication. There's clear things that we've included there that we want to change in the way in which we utilize both our all committee meeting and our pre-committee meeting. Those things I think we summarized earlier with regards to of course, we will generate a synopsis of this meeting as we always do, and so those things will be captured in the synopsis of this meeting. Are there other action steps that we need to call out here with regard to specific things that follow up? Had some policies being or some actions being referred to governance. We called those out earlier in terms of things like GP and BL policy review.
Yes. I can walk through some of those.
Good, that would be great. Yes.
GP8 board committees, board committee principles. It's a policy update. I would call it a housekeeping administrative item to make sure that the language is matching current practice. You don't need to detail all of it. Just know that this is something to revise. GP 14 board expense reimbursement, brings that forward. GP 10, this will be referred to, which is board training and orientation. This will be referred to governance to develop, to ensure we're able to develop meaningful action. I have wondered, not to bring up a complication at 305. I'm going to, because I can. I have wondered if there might be benefit in establishing an ad hoc committee for those who might be interested in this topic. It might not be a specific governance topic, but what does it mean to have a board training plan? What would success look like? What do we want that to be? And I suspect that there might be some board members anyway who have interest in supporting that. So what I do is I bring it to the governance committee, maybe with that as a notion, and then establishing an ad hoc committee underneath governance to action.
This topic has been on this list more than once.
Like every time.
It's been on annually for 4 years.
And we really haven't moved. I mean, we do have conversations, etc. But I think having that extra attention.
So I think the challenge is, like, as executive leadership, it feels strange to establish development for board members. We certainly want to engage in a conversation and support it, but how we actually get to a space of having meaningful governance training that is relevant to the board, I think the board yourselves would have the best feedback and thoughts of how that's developed.
Eric, I view you as a governance expert. What's typical for a board like us from a governance training standpoint?
Thank you, Craig. But just looking at the policy itself, so do you mind if I just read out loud the bullets on the policy, just to make sure we're all thinking the same way? So GP 10 says the board will obtain training, development, and orientation to ensure excellence in governance. New board members shall receive an orientation, which will include an orientation overview of the district's governance policies. Board members shall be offered and encouraged to receive training in the skills of effective governance, communication, and decision-making. Board chair and board committee chairs shall be offered and encouraged to receive training and facilitation of public meetings. Board members shall receive training on any laws and regulations pertinent to their duties as a director and board officer. Board members shall be offered and encouraged to receive regular training with respect to understanding trends and developments in public power and the energy industry. Consultation with the board chair, the president and chief executive officer shall prepare annually an appropriate plan of training for board members, chairs, and officers. So in answer to your question, and Bill, I would be curious to hear your thoughts here. I think what I see is sort of three forms of this training. The first is, especially for chairs and for anybody who's going to be presiding over a meeting, is training that helps you master the art of writing comments,
sort of summarizing our gains, making sure that you're moving toward a clear, coherent set of next steps, and keeping the conversation moving. Well, so that facilitation training is something that we see most board chairs or people in leadership roles getting. Second form would be, again, sort of training in your duties and obligations as board members, whether it's, and again, Steve touched on this morning, duty of care, duty of obedience, duty of loyalty. Those things need to be, I think, regularly refreshed in board members' minds, just so that there's a clear understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities. And then the third category, I think, is just training that helps you be all familiar with the energy industry, the industry you're in. It helps you understand and keep abreast of trends and factors that are going to affect you. And oftentimes what we see is we see this training and education happening with expert panels coming in or experts from outside of OPPD coming in to really kind of offer sort of insights into the industry that may not be insights you're getting otherwise. So I would just say those three forms of training are kind of the things that we think of as best practices, Craig. This also mentions orientation and onboarding. So, I mean, that's clearly something that's very important. Having all board members offer the training and skills of effective governance, communication, and decision-making. To me, that's the one that's on here that I think is maybe a little bit more optional, but it's still important. Many people never get training in decision-making and like the types of decision-making processes and kind of how to frame decision-making processes. And that's, for me as a leader, was a vital piece of my training as a leader. And I think it's hugely important for anybody who's in a decision-making role. Just to give you vocabulary around decision-making. So, there you have it. Thank you. Bill, did you want to offer something here?
Yeah, two things. There's I don't know how often board members participate in APPA conferences. Learn an awful lot by doing that. There's also something called a Policymakers Council that you can get appointed to through APPA as a representative.
We already have.
You already have that? Okay, so you're doing that one. There's another one called, I don't remember the exact name, but it's a legislative training for state legislators that are involved in making energy policy. And it's done in the Northwest. And I got a chance to attend it, and sometimes they'll let public sector board members attend. It's a training class, 1 week there in Washington and 1 week in DC. And it is fabulous. I'll forward you all the information. Your key legislators at the state level, you want them in this class.
So back to GP10, the point about it sitting on the parking lot for some time here. Scott, you mentioned the potential of an ad hoc that would help kind of carve out like, what do we really want to do here? How would we measure our success in actually complying with this policy?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of good ideas. I think that in the past, we've kind of come up with a slate of ideas and that just didn't get a lot of traction. We did have some orientation training. And if you remember, I believe directors Howard and Spurgeon, as you were going through that, the feedback was really how do we best customize that to individual directors based upon what their wants and needs were. And the feedback was it was quite kind of a lot of training. So then we abbreviated it in a great deal for Director Hudson, which I'm hoping scratched and met the need. But I just feel without an absence of having meaningful conversation, we'll keep throwing darts at a board and miss. And it feels like that's what we've done on this for a number of years. So actually having a good conversation, organizing the notion that we'll assemble a group and disassemble it as quickly as we can. I think at least we'll be able to check this off the list next year, hopefully as we.
I'll say I was satisfied.
Awesome, we got that part done.
But each board member joining comes from a different background and experience, so it does, I think, need to be customized given the experience the individual brings or doesn't bring, depending on the situation.
And I think we need to acknowledge too, that there is a heck of a lot of on-the-job training that happens for board people. Right? Like, we are just digesting information constantly. I learn something new every time. So it's not like part of a formal training program necessarily, but where a lot of it happens.
So are there other action steps we want to flag, Scott?
Yes, we've just talked about bringing SD7 and SD9 into systems for a review. There was just some feedback that from both the board and ELT that suggested a review. I'm not saying to refine, but to pull them back in as policy and just have the conversations is still aligned. And SD11 and customer and public engagement as well.
C11 was on last year. And then we lost some time because I was gone. And so I was like, let's just see if it comes back up in the governance retreat. And here we are. Back up. Now we'll actually get to it.
That goes to the customer committee. That, yes. I did, if that's all the action steps, Scott? I did want to add one final thought to the mix, and that you have a handout on this healthy governance ecosystem in your packages, and I can also give you more copies if you want it, but it was in your packages today. So I've been thinking a lot about a healthy governance ecosystem and writing about it and thinking about a new book on it. And I do think that as we think about how to assure that the kinds of changes that we talked about today are actually being measured, maybe a need to think about how we change the way we measure ourselves as we go forward, to include additional categories of stuff. So this includes, this is consistent with the 5 habits of high-performing board that you've been using to measure yourself in the past. Sorry, my fingers aren't looking fast. You'll see here that in this checklist, if you will, of a healthy governance ecosystem, there's these 5 buckets of stuff. Structural clarity. Do we have structural clarity around decision-making roles? You can see the 4 bullet points that are listed there. Directional clarity. Do we have directional clarity? Are there effective feedback loops? Do we have feedback loops that are helping to really assess how well we're doing with regard to performance of the organization? Are they being used to drive improvements in performance? Are there effective channels of communication? Oh, the category D. And is the quality of communication meeting the standards that we want it to? And so I can imagine embellishing or adding to or doing things to help you guys modify the current survey questions you're asking, so that you have a chance to actually get data back that covers all 5 of these areas of governance and has maybe a more holistic look at quality. I want to just invite some feedback about that and see whether you have, well, actually, you're right. On the back page, there is personal relationships going well as a 6th category. So, and you can see that we have envisioned a possible retreat exercise being to kind of assess here the different attributes. So again, my suggestion would be to think about whether, in the spirit of trying to continually improve, we want to actually be measuring ourselves in some of the different ways than we have done in the past, just to make sure we're touching on some of these other aspects of communication. Write your thoughts on the fly, or I also would just, suggest potentially this would be a topic for the governance committee as well to look at, whether you feel like your current survey is touching on all of the aspects of governance and communication that you want it to, or whether there's some questions here that could be
Can you talk a little, this is interesting. Can you talk a little bit about how this compares to, complements, overlaps the 5 habits?
Sure. 5 habits really gets to A and B. It does not really address C, D, E, or F.
For the benefit of whoever's watching, because they don't have these, can we spell that out?
Yes, for the benefit of whoever's watching, so the 5 habits clearly look at structural clarity, A, and habits around B, which are directional clarity. C says effective feedback loops, and it's not as clearly asked in the 5 habit survey about whether or not the feedback loops are in place to drive continued improvements in performance. It does, there are some places in the 5 habits where it does ask, for example, does the board regularly assess its own effectiveness? That question is certainly there. Does the board and CEO regularly review the performance of the organization, comparing actual performance to the board's goals and objectives? That question is asked in a different way in the 5 habits survey, so that question is there. The CEO uses these feedback loops to drive improvements in performance. That question is not there in the 5 habits survey. Effective channels of communication, which is the D, clear channels for the CEO to timely inform all board members of concerns regarding the board's policies and risks to the organization. Channels of communication where open, trust-building, fact-based communications can occur, where dissenting viewpoints and conflicting ideas can be aired out. Forums in which significant policy discussions can be held in public. That's not a question that's asked in the 5 habits survey. Quality of communication. CEO brings to the board's attention in a timely manner changes in circumstances that might cause the CEO to question a board policy or strategic direction, consults with the board in a constructive manner, laying out information, engaging the board in the process to explore alternatives, encouraging the CEO, the board encouraging the CEO to bring forward strategic recommendations that the CEO thinks will benefit the organization and its mission. Board members give the CEO recommendations respectful consideration. Board members remain open and flexible, able to reevaluate their assumptions and explore alternatives in a constructive manner. Board members recognize the consequences when they say something in public that reflects poorly on the organization. Those questions are not addressed in the 5 habits survey. And interpersonal relationship building, these are also not really asked in the 5 habits survey. These questions around board members, the CEO and ELT recognize that building strong relationships through regular interpersonal interaction is key to building trust. CEO and ELT regularly provide appreciative feedback to one another. I will say how important appreciative feedback is to any relationship of trust in which trust is the goal. Board members and the CEO and ELT recognize they are mutually responsible for the success of the organization, but that any conflicting loyalties to another cause undercuts confidence. There's a demonstrated willingness by board members, the CEO and ELT to admit mistakes, apologize for slights, and acknowledge failings in a timely manner. And there's a demonstrated willingness to forgive and move on once an apology is given. All of those interpersonal kinds of attributes are not asked for in the current. I just believe that this kind of gets to a little bit more of a sophisticated understanding of the whole ecosystem of governance. It's different though than what we're currently measuring. And we are starting to test this with other boards to see whether this set of questions will help them reach a higher level of understanding of what it takes to really work in a complex environment.
I was just reflecting it. A lot of our conversation was around D and E today.
Yes.
And that how essential all this is for the whole thing, for it all to work well.
Just a thought I want to offer you as a way to continue the continued spirit of trying to bring good practices, best practices to. All right, well, here we are. I think we might be at the final reflection moment of the day. Last year, if you recall, what we did is we said, let's imagine a year from now. What would you hope to be able to look back and say, we accomplished in this past year. I need this perspective here going forward. So I'd love to have you all just reflect for a moment on that question. You look forward. And then Michelle, can I ask you please to help flip chart this particular response? I have a handy marker right here for you. So this is just final reflections on kind of success we hope to see going forward. So, gosh, where to start? Let's start over here with you, Mike. Before we started over here with Kate, how about we start in the middle someplace? So, Troy Villa, when you look forward,
I don't know a Troy Villa.
over this next year, what would you hope would be a sign of accomplishment a year from now?
I think we talked a lot about transparency and just kind of how we share ideas and thoughts, you know, between the board, executive leadership and public. And just see that continue to grow. So that there's more trust across all parties involved.
Yep. So Eric, I'm going to keep going this way around. So what do you say?
We are in a time of significant challenges and change, and I hope that we are effectively able to communicate with each other and with the public about what to expect looking forward, so that board members do not feel surprised by anything, and that the public understands what we're all trying to accomplish on behalf of the customers and customer owners in our territory.
Yeah, great.
We'd say in a year, working together between the ELT and the board, we will have refined our governance approach to be even more effective than it currently is, in a way that benefits all of us, the ELT and the board, as well as, and more importantly, the members of the public.
Mary?
I would ditto all those comments, and I think will be measured by me as how to the degree that we feel like we're all in the same boat, that we are really taking collective responsibility, and that we may have clashes of differences of opinion, but from that will come a little spark of truth, and we can all row in the same direction with good hearts and goodwill, and hopefully bring the public along with us, keeping them informed.
I think we've ID'd, if not today, certainly prior, that when there's a lot going on and a lot of decisions to be made, that's opportunity for tension and strife in communication channels. And I think I don't think I know that everybody's in this room doing their best for OPPD, and I think a measure of our success will be how we learn to see each other's perspectives in that.
So building appreciation for one another's perspectives. Yeah. Javier?
During closed session, we mentioned the term pressure cooker. We're all doing a lot of work, and as Director Williams mentioned, things are changing and changing fast, and it's not easy to run the utility and to provide services that we provide, and things are getting more complex almost by the day. And acknowledging that, I think, to me, a measure of success next year is not necessarily that things got easier. I appreciate the call out for information, but today we discussed a lot of opportunities to work closer together, to close the gap of information, because things are happening really fast. Right? Mary, you mentioned be on the same boat. So my measure of success next year is not necessarily the survey results themselves, although I would love to see more green than anything. But it's that there's significantly less distance between ELT results and the board. If we do what we were talking about doing well, that distance should be a lot smaller.
Close the gap to the survey results. Scott?
Waking bread. Hungry, and I love the idea.
Did you not get enough lunch? Amanda?
Creating space to have meaningful, candid conversations to not only move the district forward, but also our relationships forward.
Work with the board to communicate more context to the public, so to better, fuller understanding of the decisions.
Work with the board to provide more context to the public. Build public understanding. Work with the board to build public understanding. Okay, yeah.
I have two. Let's get the training plan off the work plan. Let's get that done. That's one. For me, like, I don't view all tension as bad tension. And so like, I would really like to reflect in a year on us navigating healthy tension in a really good way. Like navigating disagreements, navigating tension.
Stand up and do this sheet.
Yes, please.
So let me take this for you. So he's afraid with navigating tensions in a healthy, constructive manner.
Yep.
I'm excited next year to go to look back and see the progress we've made on discussing larger things that are not clearly known, but we know they're things, and being able to share those more broadly without complete information, just to make sure that the community and the entity are equally aligned as much as possible on the types of things we're doing now.
I think just making progress in navigating complex issues.
That would be a better way to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So bad for Michelle, so I'm trying to pause.
Take over.
Oh, it's okay.
I think for me, it's to be able to execute proactively, knowing that we are aligned. And whether we agree or disagree on it is not as important to me as that we're aligned. So it gets back to what Craig said, that there is healthy tension. I don't think tension is bad, but being able to execute knowing that there's alignment on how we're going to.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction between sort of unanimity of viewpoint and alignment. It's a subtle one. As a board, you can be aligned and understanding this is the direction we're taking as an organization. I may, as a board member, have hoped for or wished for a different outcome, but I know we are aligned as a board and an organization in this particular direction. Is a lovely way, I think, of actually expressing that tension. So executing proactively while being aligned as a board and an ELT, that's a good one. Mike?
It was a little hard to measure, but I think what I'm considered to be successful is the board and the ELT bodies continue to improve in communication.
To improve the level of communication between the board and the ELT. Okay, you're not last this time.
I think about it from relationships and walking in each other's shoes and being able to see the world from different lenses. I think that is really helpful to close the relationships. The other thing I'd say is around storms and things that happen, that we are continue to be as safe a company as we are, or continue. Safety is paramount.
So two things. One is the ability to sort of walk in each other's shoes and see each other's perspectives. And the second thing Kate said has to do with just maintaining our record of safety for the customers we serve. And our employees. Yeah. Sarah?
I think if we're successful next year, we will be able to concretely see structures that have shifted so that we have an opportunity for candor with the ELT. So our previous governance workshops called for candor with the CEO and the board. And so now it's sort of like we're evolving into, now we actually need to have candor with the ELT as well. And so we've strengthened the muscle with the CEO, and now it's time to strengthen the muscle with the ELT.
Tim? I would say that we're able to look back a year from now and see that we've navigated very difficult, thorny, complex issues in a way that's deepened understanding of ourselves and the public.
Navigating complex issues that, did you say deepen understanding for ourselves and the public?
Yeah, I think that we've talked a little bit about that, and I think it's more so true for the general public, for our customers, is they don't often understand and maybe to the level of depth required for us as decision makers. We don't equally understand the level of complexity, the trade-offs involved, the headwinds and tailwinds involved in some of these really difficult issues.
It's already been addressed by a number of the comments, really being communication, but to get more specific, these subcommittee meetings, that we get greater value out of the subcommittee meetings with, you know, more deeper diving into some of the key issues subcommittees are dealing with, so that that session isn't just a brief for the all committees meeting essentially, but really you're starting to wade in and work through some issues. Subcommittee with, you know, more open, candid conversation. There, I think it's a great environment to do more of that than at least by 8 months than we've done in the subcommittee.
Using the word subcommittee, but I think pre-committee.
Pre-committee is the right,
Yeah.
sorry.
No.
It's called subcommittee.
Appreciate all of those remarks very much. And thank you, Michelle.
Absolutely.
So I guess we're to final comments, and I wonder, here, Matt, Mary, have you already worked out an order with which you'd like to make some final comments?
Well, I would just want to express appreciation to Scott Roche and Aaron Lane for helping with all the, get all this together, to Eric Douglas and Bill Slayton for your help in helping us work through all this. It's a lot. Really appreciate that too. Steve Bruckner for your counsel and advice to make sure that we're following all the laws that we need to do. And appreciation to everybody seated around these tables for your participation. And I didn't hear anybody sitting back saying, I'm not being involved here. So that's been really, really super to have everyone's voice at the table. So thank you all.
I'll echo everything Mary said, and then I'm gonna certainly, I found today very productive, and I'll challenge myself throughout the year to call back to some of the things that I learned today while I'm working through any issues that might come up or anything that's part of the district's business, from an understanding of how hard everybody is working. And I think as long as we remember that, we'll keep getting to the right place each time. So, and then I know it's another day out of people's lives, so I wanted to say thanks to everyone for being here as well. So
quickly, I want to thank, there's over 2,000 women and men who are not here today, who are allowing us to have this conversation, and they're keeping the lights on. And I want to just acknowledge that this is a luxury for us to be able to sit here and have this deep conversation about governance, because we have amazing leaders and amazing employees who are keeping the conversation running. Thank you to the ELT for leaning in. It took time to fill out the service. We did something that we haven't done before, and I think that the candor helped a lot. Same with the board. But I especially want to thank the board. I don't think we do these very often, and I'm just going to go out of my way here to thank you all for being public servants, for running for office. You are truly representing what a true civic engagement looks like. You're dedicating a lot of your time to understanding and going deep into
into issues, making hard decisions, and I don't want to just obviate that. I think it's important to recognize that, and I want to thank you all for doing that. It's making us all better, and it's really all to serve a very honorable mission of keeping the power on. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mary, Javier, thanks for your words. Bill and Eric, thanks for being there. And I think with that at 3:38, we're adjourned for today. Great. Thanks, everybody.